A commercial jetliner carrying 239 souls lifted into the night sky, then simply ceased to exist. No distress call. No debris. No trace. Just gone. In the modern age of aviation, such a disappearance should be impossible. Radar networks blanket the globe. Communication channels connect pilots with ground control every second of every flight. Black boxes record every mechanical whisper, every human word. Satellites track even the smallest aircraft. And yet, on the night of March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 vanished without a sound. It began as an ordinary red-eye journey. MH370, a Boeing 777-200ER, departed Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:41 a.m., bound for Beijing. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members from 14 different nations, a microcosm of the world itself, unknowingly united in what would become one of history's greatest mysteries. Captain Zahri Ahmad Shah, an experienced pilot with over 18,000 flight hours, was in command. Beside him, First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, a promising young aviator, just weeks away from qualifying as a full-fledged 777 pilot. The night was calm, visibility clear. MH370 rose smoothly into the starlit skies, climbing to a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. At 1:19 a.m., over the South China Sea, Captain Zahri's calm voice radioed Malaysian Air Traffic Control, "Good night. Malaysian 370. It was the final known communication from the flight. Moments later, as the plane prepared to transition into Vietnamese airspace, it disappeared from civilian radar. One moment, a bright blip on the screen, next, nothing. Controllers attempted contact. No response. Military radar later showed an inexplicable turn west, a course reversal no one had ordered. But here's where the story plunges into the inexplicable. MH370 did not crash immediately. For nearly 7 hours after it vanished from civilian tracking, satellite handshakes, called pings, suggested the plane remained airborne, traveling far off its planned route. Each ping a ghostly heartbeat, growing fainter with each passing hour, until the final signal at 8:19 a.m. After that, silence. Search and rescue operations were launched within hours. Dozens of aircraft and ships scoured the South China Sea. Nothing. Expanding their search westward, investigators faced an agonizing reality: they had no idea where to look. How could a massive jetliner, equipped with modern tracking systems, vanish without a trace in an era when smartphones could pinpoint a person on a city street? Conspiracy theories ignited like wildfire. Hijacking. Pilot suicide. Mechanical failure. Military interception. Even whispers of the supernatural. The families of the 239 missing clung desperately to hope. Without wreckage, without proof of death, they remained suspended in a torturous limbo. Their loved ones were neither alive nor dead, simply missing. And the world watched in stunned disbelief. Day after day, week after week, no wreckage, no bodies, no answers. It was as if MH370 had been swallowed by the sky. But behind the scenes, a secret race was unfolding. Investigators analyzing the satellite data began to piece together an astonishing new theory, one that would shift the search to one of the most remote and unforgiving places on Earth. A place where the depths of the ocean may still conceal the final chapter of this haunting enigma. And what they would soon uncover would only deepen the mystery. "7 hours after it vanished from radar. Flight MH370 was still flying. But toward what? And why? As days bled into weeks, the world's most advanced search and rescue operations turned up nothing but empty sea. No floating wreckage. No oil slick. No emergency beacons. For families of the missing, hope began to decay into raw, paralyzing fear. But in the dim hum of satellite control rooms far from the public eye, engineers at British company Inmarsat made a chilling discovery. Their satellite had not been tracking MH370's exact location, but it had been receiving mysterious hourly handshakes, automated digital pings exchanged between the aircraft and the satellite. It was as if the missing plane was waving faintly from the dark, one final whisper per hour, across a vast and empty sky. With no GPS data, investigators devised a radical approach. By analyzing the Doppler shift of the signals, how their frequency changed, they reconstructed a rough path of the aircraft's flight after it vanished from radar. What they found stunned even the most seasoned experts. MH370 had reversed course sharply across the Malay Peninsula, crossed the Strait of Malacca, and flown on into the vast expanse of the southern Indian Ocean. No official flight path. No radio communication. No explanation. Who was controlling the plane? And why were they heading toward the loneliest stretch of water on Earth? As search grids shifted west, attention turned to the 7th arc, a sweeping curve calculated from the final satellite ping at 8:19 a.m. Somewhere along this arc, it was believed, the Boeing 777 had finally met its fate. But the arc spanned a desolate stretch of ocean the size of Western Europe, with depths reaching nearly 6,000 meters, an abyss capable of swallowing steel whole. In April 2014, an Australian-led search team deployed a towed pinger locator to detect signals from MH370's black boxes. Days of silence passed, until faint acoustic pings were detected deep below the waves. The world held its breath. But after weeks of scouring the seafloor in that area, nothing was found. The pings, whether genuine or false leads, ceased. The hope that had flickered briefly was once again snuffed out. As the official search pushed into deeper waters, disturbing new questions surfaced. Experts debated whether the aircraft had glided under control during its final moments, or whether it had plunged in a catastrophic dive. Was this a deliberate act? A hijacking? A tragic accident? Or something darker still? Meanwhile, whispers emerged about the captain's personal life. A flight simulator recovered from his home showed routes eerily similar to MH370's final known path into the southern Indian Ocean. The media frenzy exploded, suggesting possible premeditation, a pilot intent on orchestrating the perfect disappearance. Yet no conclusive evidence ever surfaced. Zari's family and friends vehemently denied any such intent, painting him as a loving father, a passionate aviator. The truth remained maddeningly elusive. And so the search pressed on, through towering ocean swells, through the crushing pressure of the deep, through the deafening roar of silence. Months turned to years. Budgets dwindled. Hopes withered. But then, a battered piece of debris washed ashore thousands of miles from the search zone, off the coast of Reunion Island. A wing fragment. A flaperon. Almost certainly from MH370. It was the first physical proof that the plane had indeed ended its journey in the southern Indian Ocean. But it raised as many questions as it answered. What other secrets might the ocean still be hiding? And why was so little debris found from such a massive aircraft? The enigma was far from over. Because what investigators would uncover next would shake the very foundation of the official narrative. A single broken wing part surfaces, then another, then another. But each new clue only deepens the mystery. Where is the rest of the plane? And what is being hidden? The battered flaperon found on Reunion Island in July 2015 was a breakthrough, a tangible link to a ghost flight that had haunted the world for over a year. Experts confirmed it belonged to MH370. For the first time, families had proof their loved one's plane had ended its journey in the remote Indian Ocean. But closure remained agonizingly out of reach. Why was there so little debris? In a high-speed ocean impact, a plane the size of a Boeing 777 should scatter thousands of fragments across the surface. Yet weeks of intensified aerial and maritime searches around Reunion yielded nothing. No seats. No luggage. No bodies. And then, in a pattern as eerie as it was sporadic, other fragments began to wash up, sometimes months apart, sometimes continents away. A horizontal stabilizer in Mozambique. An engine cowling in South Africa. A section of interior paneling in Madagascar. Each piece told the same grim story: MH370 had broken apart at sea. But troubling inconsistencies nagged at investigators. Many items showed little marine life growth, suggesting they had not been adrift for as long as expected. Were they being planted? Was someone manipulating the narrative? Speculation swirled. Independent investigators and aviation experts began questioning the official search zone, suggesting that satellite data may have been misinterpreted, or worse, intentionally manipulated. And beneath the surface, a deeper current of distrust was growing. From the earliest hours of the disappearance, Malaysian authorities had been accused of withholding information, delaying the release of key radar data, and offering shifting timelines of MH370's last known movements. Families of the victims felt betrayed. Vigils turned into protests. Grief gave way to anger. Meanwhile, journalists uncovered chilling facts. Malaysia's military had tracked an unidentified plane, presumed to be MH370, as it crossed back over the Malay Peninsula. Yet this information had not been shared with civilian search teams for days. Why the delay? Even more disturbing was the timeline of the plane's final hours. Satellite pings showed MH370 flying steadily southward for 6 hours after going dark. But no nation had detected it crossing controlled airspace. Could military radar have seen it, and chosen to stay silent? Whispers of a cover-up gained momentum. Theories multiplied. Was MH370 shot down after straying into sensitive airspace? Did a hijacking go horribly wrong, with governments hiding the truth to avoid diplomatic fallout? Or was it a meticulously planned suicide by the captain, who exploited system loopholes to vanish into history? Amid this maelstrom of suspicion, one fact remained irrefutable: the official search, one of the most extensive in aviation history, had failed to find the plane's main wreckage or its black boxes. Billions of dollars had been spent. Hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of ocean had been scanned. Yet the heart of the mystery remained hidden beneath cold, crushing depths. And as international interest waned and funding dried up, one chilling question hung in the air: had the searchers been looking in the wrong place all along? Soon, an independent effort would arise, driven by a relentless desire to uncover the truth, no matter how dark. And what they would find would send shockwaves across the world. When governments gave up the search, a small group of outsiders refused to let the dead rest in darkness. But what they uncovered would threaten to rewrite the entire story. By early 2017, after 3 years of relentless searching, the official hunt for MH370 was suspended. The Australian-led effort had exhausted its resources, combing over 120,000 square kilometers of ocean floor, an area larger than England. The results: a few scattered debris pieces, and a haunting void where answers should have been. For the families of the 239 victims, this was a cruel betrayal. Abandoned by governments, many were left clinging to the faint hope that someone, anyone, would continue the fight. That someone came in the form of Ocean Infinity, a private US-based deep-sea exploration company. Armed with state-of-the-art autonomous underwater vehicles, capable of scanning vast swathes of ocean floor at unprecedented speeds, they struck a deal with the Malaysian government: no find, no fee. But beneath this new wave of hope lurked old tensions. Independent researchers and aviation experts had long questioned the seventh arc theory, the narrow path where MH370 was supposedly lost. One such critic was aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey. Using a technique called weak signal propagation reporter, WSPR, which analyzes faint radio signals disrupted by aircraft, Godfrey suggested an alternate flight path, one that diverged from the official narrative. According to his analysis, MH370 had not flown steadily southward at all. Instead, it had exhibited strange patterns, turns, altitude changes, even possible holding patterns, before plunging into a remote part of the ocean far from the seventh arc. Was the plane truly flying itself on autopilot? Or was a human at the controls, steering deliberately toward oblivion? Ocean Infinity's first search mission covered nearly 112,000 square kilometers of new territory in just 3 months. Hope soared, but again, no wreckage was found. And then came the bombshell. Independent analysts revealed that parts of the ocean initially ruled out as impossible based on satellite data were, in fact, entirely plausible crash sites. Had political forces narrowed the search too early? Had government steered the investigation away from sensitive military zones or classified surveillance operations? The implications were staggering. At the same time, new debris was still washing ashore on African coastlines, each piece a grim reminder that the plane's story was not over. Some fragments bore scorch marks, fueling theories of an onboard fire. Others showed signs of controlled breakup, suggesting a potential glide rather than a catastrophic dive. What really happened in those final moments? Meanwhile, families of the victims faced another cruel twist: growing evidence of systemic corruption and incompetence within the initial investigation. Key documents had been withheld. Radar data was missing. Even the authenticity of some recovered debris was being questioned. It was as if someone, somewhere, did not want the full truth to emerge. Yet the independent hunters pressed on, armed with new technology, new data, and an unshakable resolve to find the plane that government seemed content to forget. And behind the scenes, whispers of a shocking new theory were gathering force, one that suggested the disappearance of MH370 was no tragic accident, but the result of a sinister, calculated plan. A plan that may have involved more players, and darker motives, than anyone had dared imagine. A chilling question now gripped the world. Was Flight MH370 the victim of a lone act of madness? Or a far-reaching conspiracy involving powerful players? As more layers of the MH370 enigma peeled away, the focus began shifting, from mechanical failure, from tragic accident, to something darker. Whispers of an elaborate cover-up were no longer confined to fringe theorists. Seasoned investigators and insiders now voiced unsettling suspicions. Central to this storm was Captain Zahri Ahmad Shah. In public, he was portrayed as a dedicated family man and veteran pilot. But in the shadows, a different portrait emerged, one of a man deeply troubled in the weeks before the flight. Privately obtained records from his home flight simulator revealed routes into the southern Indian Ocean, eerily similar to MH370's final path. Could this have been a dry run for an intentional disappearance? But the implications were staggering. If Zahri had orchestrated the event, how had he evaded detection for so long? Why had air traffic control and military radar failed to intercept the aircraft's rogue flight? That's when deeper cracks began to appear in the official story. Leaked Malaysian military radar data suggested the plane made deliberate course changes, beyond the reach of autopilot, after losing contact with civilian radar. The transponder had been manually switched off. The aircraft's communication systems were silenced one by one, in a sequence only a skilled pilot could execute. It pointed to chilling intent. But was Zahri acting alone? Here, the conspiracy theories exploded. Some pointed to a politically charged motive. Zahri, an outspoken supporter of an opposition leader who had been controversially jailed just hours before the flight. Was this a desperate act of protest, meant to humiliate the government? Others suggested a far more sinister plot. Could the plane have been hijacked, not by terrorists, but by covert operatives seeking to exploit the flight for intelligence or geopolitical leverage? Fueling this theory were gaps in the timeline. Multiple countries with advanced radar capabilities, including Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and India, had failed to raise alarms as MH370 flew through sensitive airspace. Why? Were certain agencies aware of the flight's deviation, and ordered silence to protect classified surveillance methods? And then there was the mystery of the cargo. On board MH370 was an undeclared shipment of lithium-ion batteries, known fire hazards. But alongside them was another mysterious package, listed vaguely as radio accessories. Some theorists suggested it was a clandestine intelligence shipment, potentially targeted for interception. If true, MH370's disappearance may have been part of a botched black ops operation, one whose details remain buried beneath layers of official denials. And yet, for every piece of evidence supporting a dark conspiracy, counter-evidence emerged to refute it. The captain's family insisted on his innocence. Aviation experts warned against leaping to conclusions. But the shadows remained. And the deeper one looked into MH370's disappearance, the more unsettling it became. Because whether it was the act of one man, a geopolitical incident, or an intelligence operation gone awry, one fact remained chillingly clear: someone had engineered the perfect vanishing act. And as the world braced for final answers, one last, haunting twist was yet to come. One that would leave the fate of Flight MH370 shrouded in darkness forever. In a world of constant surveillance, a 250-ton aircraft vanished. And the truth may never fully emerge. More than a decade has passed since MH370 disappeared into the darkness. The search for the aircraft has become the most expensive and complex in aviation history, yet still, its final resting place remains unknown. Over the years, new search efforts have been proposed. Ocean Infinity mounted a second expedition in 2018, covering additional vast swaths of the Indian Ocean, again with no success. In 2024, renewed plans surfaced to resume the hunt, fueled by fresh data modeling and persistent public pressure. But the ocean guards its secrets well. The seafloor in these remote zones is a jagged, unmapped world of underwater mountains, deep trenches, and thick sediment that can bury wreckage for eternity. For the families, the agony is endless. Each passing year deepens their torment. Without the black boxes, without the cockpit voice recordings or flight data, the true sequence of MH370's final moments remains a void no satellite ping can fill. And so, speculation persists like a ghost in the global consciousness. Some cling to the mechanical failure theory. Perhaps a sudden hypoxia event caused the crew and passengers to lose consciousness, leaving the plane to fly on autopilot until its fuel ran dry. But the evidence of deliberate course changes and systematic shutdowns makes this scenario increasingly difficult to accept. Others remain convinced that Captain Zari executed a meticulously planned act of murder-suicide, using his unparalleled knowledge of the aircraft to vanish into an untraceable expanse of ocean. But no irrefutable proof has ever emerged, and many argue it's too convenient a scapegoat for governments eager to close a politically embarrassing case. And then there are those who believe we still haven't been told the full story, that military radar data, satellite imagery, and intelligence intercepts remain classified, concealing truths that could rewrite the official narrative. Was MH370 hijacked by outside forces? Was it shot down, intentionally or accidentally, by a nation now engaged in a desperate cover-up? Or was it part of a complex intelligence operation, its true fate hidden in the fog of geopolitics? With each theory, new questions arise. Why was no larger debris field ever found? Why did certain nations with overlapping radar coverage remain silent? Why did key documents and data vanish or remain withheld? The haunting reality is this: we may never know. MH370 has become more than a missing flight. It is a symbol of our modern anxieties, a reminder that in an age where we believe every movement is tracked, every secret exposed, it is still possible to simply disappear. For the families left behind, the grief is compounded by the absence of answers. Each sunrise brings no new solace. Each crash of the ocean against lonely shores echoes a question that remains unanswered. Where is MH370? What happened on that flight, in those final hours above the endless sea? And who, or what, still holds the truth? Until the wreckage is found, until the black boxes are recovered, until every piece of this chilling puzzle is laid bare, MH370 will remain what it has become, a modern legend of the unknown. A plane that slipped beyond the reach of satellites, radars, and human understanding, into a sky without closure.